this is going to be a good night. So we're going to try to cover as much as we can. We have 4 amazing entrepreneurs here to talk with you about what they're doing in the augmented reality space. But I'm curious about you guys. Are you developing in augmented reality? Raise your hand if this is an area that interests you from a personal business perspective. Yes. Okay. Good. And the other folks are entrepreneurs looking for strategy and what to look out for. Okay. Then we know what we're going to do. Investors. Oh, that's very important. Everybody turn around and look at the investors. We love investors. Speaking of investors, I've got a number. I've got a good number. The number is $161 billion. Investors, that's how much this industry of augmented reality is anticipated to generate just 5 years from now. Mike, what is the industry generating now? Do you have a number for augmented reality revenues?
It's probably right now, because it's coming from lots of different sources, that number is probably based a lot on hardware sales, the supporting ecosystem. Right now, a lot of that isn't even here yet. Right now, it's kind of loose, because if you can consider ARKit and what Apple is going to be launching next month with the iPhone 8, and the fact that ARKit is compatible now with, the numbers I've done suggest 380 million existing units, that makes it a much larger market in dollars today.
Do we know a dollar figure?
I don't know if we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then 161 billion is just putting a stake in the sand farther out there.
Is that the IDC figure?
Yeah, that's kind of balances back. That's a few of them are out there with different figures, but that's the one benchmark that I thought was worth mentioning here. I'm Linda Jacobson. I'm currently directing augmented reality and virtual reality projects and production at Treasure 8. Treasure 8 is a food technology and an agricultural technology company. One of my colleagues is here, another 3D modeler. I've been gambling in virtual reality hereabouts for 20 good solid years. I am part of that first wave of virtual reality pioneers. I've been in product management, biz, dev, IP, writing, marketing, communications, and content development, texture mapping, and project management. So I've had a lot of fun. Back in the early days of virtual reality, we understood virtual reality in part as a descendant of augmented reality, or more accurately as a descendant of the heads-up displays by the military and aerospace industries. And then the web arrived, and that took everybody's attention away from virtual reality. And kind of like dogs running after a squirrel, everybody ran after the internet. And just as the internet thoroughly changed the way we work and play, so too will augmented reality. We're coming back full circle, but we're going to do it to even a greater extent. All the major tech companies are all playing in this space, the biggest computing companies, the biggest telecommunication companies. And now we've got an ever-growing number of augmented reality product pilots and solutions and entrepreneurs, including the 4 you see up here with me today. So with that in mind, businesses, as you point out, businesses need to develop a strategy of where to play and how to win to create some value. So tonight we're here to herald that change and understand the impact on today's business leaders. I'm going to introduce each of our panelists individually, tell you a little bit about them and their company, then they'll explain to you where they stand in status in approaching the market and what their mission and product or service is. Sound good? Okay, and then at the end we'll take some time for some Q&A. So this is amazing. I want to start with this video. I think you have to turn the mic off. Yep. I'll give you the heads up, Suman, when to turn on the mic. I'm going to introduce you first and play this video. Suman Kanuganti, down here, my friend Sunam, co-founded and is CEO of Aira.io, which is based in San Diego. He and his team developed technology to bring greater mobility and independence to the lives of people who are blind or who have visual impairment. So amazing work for good. Suman previously worked at Intuit, Qualcomm, and Caterpillar, and he's been awarded 5 patents in interactive computer devices. So before we ask Suman to talk, you've got to check this out.
I have a degenerative eye disease called retinitis pigmentosa. I was diagnosed at age 5 and have been losing my vision steadily over many years. What I have remaining now I describe as if you were looking through a drinking straw that was covered with wax paper. On Monday, I'm excited to be running in my 8th Boston Marathon. However, this year will be a little bit different. I'm actually going to be testing out a new technology that's very exciting called Aira. It is a glasses-mounted camera paired with a smartphone app. By activating the app, it connects me with a sighted human assistant that is located somewhere else in the world.
Got walkers on your right.
On Monday, Jessica from Aira in Ohio is going to be helping. It's going to be great because I've got a considerable blind spot at about 1 o'clock. And so there can be times where people are either inching their way in or aggressively cutting into my path. And with how much I see today, I don't know it until they're basically right in front of me. So one thing we're looking forward to trying out with Jessica is to have her pick up on when that's happening and say, okay, you've got someone. And so then I can be like blind athlete here or something to signal. To push the limits of the technology is, in my mind, running a course like Boston, where it's such a crowded race, it's such a vibrant race, I mean, so much energy. You know, I think that will have broad-ranging or far-reaching implications for other technology. For many, it's going to restore independence and dignity and the ability to find employment. And I know it's a term that's, you know, kind of heavily used these days, but it's a game changer.
I turn on the mic. Hello everyone. I want to start with letting you know that I actually flew in from San Diego to see you guys today. And I'm flying back to San Diego again tonight. So I want to make sure our time is worthwhile here today. So let's have some fun. I myself, Suman Kanuganti, the company is 2 years old startup. It's been 2.5 years now, and can you guys hear me okay? Yeah? A little louder. Okay, or maybe closer. So the startup is around 2.5 years old, and we commercially launched 6 months ago. We are one of the 9 partners that recently were part of the Google Enterprise Glass announcement. So we were originally using Google as V1 as well as now Google as V2 or enterprise glasses. What we do is we basically send our customers, by now blind and low vision people, a pair of smart glasses. And obviously most of the smart glasses that we use today has the camera that is mounted right in front of people's eye. So essentially when a blind person taps onto the glasses, they connect to a remote human agent. This human agent is basically sitting in front of a computer, and they are seeing through the eyes of the blind person using the first person point of view camera in real time in less than 200 milliseconds. The actual is around 120 milliseconds. I like to brag about my latency all the time. But besides the video camera, there is a lot of information that is being augmented on the dashboard itself. So in a way, it's a little bit twist to the augmented reality, which probably I will speak after the introductions are done. But today, like hundreds of blind or low vision people are walking around the world, traveling with confidence, having some really amazing experiences, anywhere from simple things as getting from point A to point B, or going to new cities, or experiencing, let's say, a father's funeral or daughter's wedding. It goes on and on. So I can give you millions of examples, but for the sake of time, it's pretty much augmented reality for the blind.
Thank you, Suman. That's great, and I look forward to hearing more. Our next speaker has some really interesting technology to show and to talk about. This is Steve Medina. Steve Medina directs product management at Avegant, which these days means he is working on the launch of Avegant's light field head-mounted display. Before joining Avegant, Steve managed products for GoPro, HP, Intel, Sony, and Toshiba. He has a really far and wide view on what's going on. I'm going to play this video in the background while you start talking. How about that?
Thank you. So Avegant has been in business since actually it started in 2013. The product that we first came out with was a consumer device. It looked like a pair of headphones. It was the first consumer application of a retinal image display. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically a little projector that uses a low power LED to bounce off of a digital micromirror device directly into your retina. So there's no screen that you're looking at when you look into this device. There's actually a projector pushing rays of light into your eyes directly. The benefit, I mean, you can see we basically created this optical module. This creates from 10 feet away about a 57, 60 inch screen. Very, very high fill factor, so you don't see screen door effects, very bright, high contrast picture. So this was really the beginning of the company is bringing this product to market. We launched it in 2016. It was originally a Kickstarter campaign, so we shipped to our backers and to pre-order customers, and then we broadened distribution through 2016 into Asia, Europe, and so forth. In between the time that we launched and where we are now, we've been basically I've been working with the team to create a bunch of different MVPs because we were basically trying to figure out, okay, where do we go next? Do we evolve where the glyph is, continue in consumer entertainment? Where do we go? So we had a number of different optical benches that we developed, increasing the field of view and making this experience better. But one of the optical benches we were working on is taking the projection technology and actually putting it through a translucent lens to target the AR market. Now, AR is a pretty broad market. I mean, it encompasses a wide spectrum of devices from smartphones to head-mounted displays. We're targeting specifically the mixed reality part of AR. And mixed reality is really where we have a greater interaction between the virtual objects and the real objects around us in the environment. So what we're actually doing is we have found a way to use our projection system to create a light field display. The light field display effectively solves one of the biggest problems in VR and AR today, and that's the accommodation vergence conflict. The accommodation vergence conflict is basically one of the problems that tells your brain that what you're seeing is not real. We look at, when we design products, how the eyes function, and one of the ways that your eyes function, and you can do this as an example, is if you stick your finger in front of you and you focus on it, you notice that all of the background, if you're looking at your finger and looking in front of this poster here, your finger's in focus, but the background is out of focus. Okay. Now, if you look at the background, you'll notice that your finger's out of focus, and you can see the back. So your eyes naturally refocus on things that you're looking at. Now, in VR and AR, everything is presented at a single focal plane, meaning that regardless of the illusion of trying to make things look closer or farther, your eyes are focusing on only one certain place. So if you're trying to render something that's very close to you in mixed reality, let's say I want to put an elephant in my hand or something like that, I can focus on the elephant. If it's a single focal plane, I can focus on the elephant, but my hand would be out of focus. So how real is that, right? For reality and mixed reality, effectively an immersive experience, I want to be able to see my hand in focus and my virtual object in focus, so it really looks like it's sitting on my hand. So that's what our display does. It allows you to see things close. It allows you to see things far away. Your eyes naturally focus on areas that it's looking at, so we can do multiple virtual objects. Like in some of our demos, we actually have planets or asteroids floating in space, and you can naturally focus on things close, and then you can look at them and focus at them far away as well. One of the problems, which is the accommodation vergence issue, is that your eyes converge and they refocus on things closer to you. And that function of your eyes is very, very critical in about a meter in to very close to the front of your face. So most of the solutions out there actually render objects on a focal plane that's 1.5 to 2 meters away. So when you try to put something in your hand, it could be on the same plane, like actual plane as your hand, but the focus won't be right. So that's what our light field display does, and that's what we're focused on, pun intended, is really making mixed reality more real. And we're showing different applications here because manipulation of virtual objects is going to be very important for enterprise users, such as designers, engineers. They want to be able to actually manipulate objects and see them up close. So our technology would allow people to actually do that. So not only could you stand back and look at a car like that, but you'd actually be able to walk up to it, open the door, and walk in. Now I can easily do that in VR because I render everything, but in AR that's going to be really difficult. To say if I actually had a real car and wanted to put virtual objects in it, or have virtual real objects that represent different parts of the car and put virtual finishes on it, I wouldn't be able to do that without light field technology. So it's the ability to be close as well as far away and actually use gesture tracking technology to very easily interact with those virtual objects.
All right, thank you. Talking about how hard it is to distinguish that technology from magic. That's what I think of when I see what Avegant is doing. And I imagine you get that kind of response from a lot of people when they get to try it. All right. Thanks, Steve. So our next speaker, Taylor Wilding, has a very interesting background. Before he became a professional biz dev guy, Taylor played pro baseball for 6 years as a pitcher for the Giants and the LA Angels of Anaheim. And that's pretty cool, and you could ask him about his stats later. Today he helps the startup roOomy to set up partnerships with home furnishing retailers and real estate firms all around the world. They're doing some really exciting work in this space. roOomy is truly global. It was founded in Amsterdam, where back-end development continues to occur. And they have 200 employees all around the world, including a content team in China. But Taylor comes to us from the Bay Area. And I'll play this clip while you tell folks about what you and roOomy are doing. Thanks, Taylor.
Thank you. Take two. All right. Well, first of all, I'm happy to be here, so thanks all for coming out. I'm going to actually start out with a question, or two questions. First question is, how many of you in this room have ever bought a piece of furniture? All right, we got a pretty good audience. How many of you have rented a place to live or purchased a place to live? All right, good deal. So we have a good start here, good relationship going. So what we do at roOomy is we are actually converting 2D images from leading home furnishing retailers, converting those into 3D models, because as you can imagine, these are not the manufacturers of these pieces of furniture. So what happens is they get a picture, a stock image of, let's say, this chair right here, and they're expected to now market this very chair in 20 to 30 different permutations, different fabrics, different finishes, etc. We then create 3D models out of those 2D images, and we apply those different textures and different finishes to those chairs in order for our home furnishing retailer partners to market them to you. So as you're shopping today on some of those big e-commerce sites and some of our customers, you're actually looking at 3D models that are rendered into high resolution, and they are also in their applications today. So those websites you've probably been on today, if not this week for sure, and may have been seeing those products. So we're helping them really solve the problem of painting a picture or showing you the possibilities of those pieces of furniture. And then what we're doing as well is we're licensing those products back for our real estate virtual staging application, which is roOomy. That's ROOOmy, as opposed to some other companies out there that have similar names, just spelled differently, which I spoke to one gentleman earlier about. So, no confusion there. But we're licensing those 3D models back that we've created at high volumes for those leading retailers, and then we apply them to virtual stagings. So we have a team of interior designers that take those products that we have in our applications, which are on iOS as well as Google Tango, and we apply them then to contextually relevant setting for someone. If you're shopping for a home, you can actually see what a piece of furniture looks like in that home before you buy it. So not only are you able to unlock the potential of that home that you're about to hopefully purchase or rent, but you also can see what the furniture looks like within it. And then we are really building that connective tissue, or we are the connective tissue between retail and real estate. So you can actually click through and purchase that piece of furniture that you see in your future home and actually buy it straight from our partners' websites. So really it's about unlocking the potential not only of the real estate piece property that someone is purchasing or renting, but also enabling yourselves to see what that piece of furniture will look like in the space. So it's really exciting stuff. It's something that we've already identified here today, as every single person in this room has experienced the act of buying a piece of furniture and renting or buying a home. And, for me personally, I purchased a home about 2 years ago, and I can't tell you how many times I went back on that website to look at those pictures before I actually moved in to see what am I going to do with this space when I move in, and how am I going to decorate it, how am I going to do, what improvements am I going to make. We are now unlocking the potential of that property, giving people the ability to come in and explore, right? To personalize that space. Even if you're not in the market to buy a new piece of furniture, you can find a piece of furniture in our catalog, which is, hundreds of thousands of products and growing. And you can actually put them into a room that you're going to move into and see what it's going to look like before you buy the house, rent the house, or buy the piece of furniture.
Thank you, Taylor. Great. That's great to hear about. I love the phrase unlocking the potential. Each of you is unlocking potential. You're unlocking potential, and I bet your analytical brain is really enjoying the potpourri of Bachelor number 1, Bachelor number 2, Bachelor number 3. It's a generational joke, guys. Mike Boland, my friend Mike Boland right here, is the co-president of the San Francisco chapter of the International VR/AR Association. And he's also chief analyst of his own company, ARtillry, and has written comprehensive reports on tech and media, specializing in virtual reality and augmented reality. Mike started his journalism career as a staff reporter for Forbes in 2000, and then became an industry analyst covering mobile and social media in 2005. And ever since, he's been writing articles, analyzing business opportunities and solutions over the past 17 years. Mike contributes regularly to TechCrunch, Business Insider, and the Huffington Post, and now to TIE. Mike?
Thank you. So, ARtillry is really the main hat that I wear. I kind of wear several hats with the VR/AR Association, and it's a publication and an analyst firm, and it's kind of a hybrid between the two, and that's kind of the embodiment of some of my background of being a former tech journalist and analyst, and I'll get into what I mean by that. But yeah, I think that the best way to understand that is, my background. I was at Forbes, I was a tech journalist, a few places like that, and then I sold out to the Analyst Corps about 10 years ago. And most of that time I was actually covering mobile. Most analysts, they're kind of identified by their coverage area. So I was covering mobile throughout the smartphone kind of era. And about 2 years ago, I started to get really excited about kind of emerging and immersive technologies like VR and AR. And that's when I signed on to be the San Francisco chapter president of the VR/AR Association. But then it really culminated about 4 months ago when I decided to kind of quit my well-paying analyst job and jump in with both feet to this kind of industry and start ARtillry. So it's a publication in that I'm putting out kind of daily insights and analysis in the form of kind of blog posts, weekly newsletter, monthly reports that go a little bit deeper. Sprinkled in between that, I'm working with a lot of multimedia like thought leadership videos and interviews with great kind of innovators in the space like you guys that come across as like a video interview that I will publish. And then the analyst side of the firm is a typical analyst firm that does a lot of events, consulting, research reports, and really the strategy there in that kind of hybrid approach is that, I've observed that there are a lot of publications out there that either my competitors or co-opetition that I've noticed that could benefit from analyst sensibilities and going a little bit deeper and kind of quantitative analysis. And likewise, there are a lot of analyst firms out there that could really benefit from journalistic sensibilities and better production quality and kind of becoming more of a media company. So I kind of built something that's somewhere in between there. And I'm 4 months into it. So in Dan's terms from earlier, I'm very much at a minimum viable product. But do have a kind of monetization roadmap and lots of learning so far, and I'm excited to get into some of that stuff.
All right, great, thank you. I want to ask your opinion of something. So we have a tech provider, we have a consumer-facing solution provider, and then we have a health and wellness infrastructure company, and then you're selling information and experience and insight and knowledge. So would you think everybody here faces the same challenges in bringing their product or service to market? And I want to ask these guys, what are some of what's the hardest challenge they've faced so far? Which one do you want to hear first?
Well, so let me add to your comment too. So, and that'll also give me some time to think about answering your question. But also, I think what's great is you guys are a cross section of just like the broad applicability. When we look at this kind of overall space, which we're referring to as VR/AR or XR is the new term, or it's not a new term, but it's just an easier kind of XR refers to all of them. But just the broad applicability of all of these things in terms of like hardware and light field technology kind of together, consumer based kind of e-commerce assisted AR, and then also like very kind of societal and altruistic types of applications. And then like all of the companies we're seeing are so many other things. Now the question is, are they all facing the same challenges? They're probably facing this, a different version of an overall challenge, which is probably, since all this is so new, it's a lot of market education. It's consumer education. You guys are all mostly consumer facing. There's a lot of enterprise stuff we're looking at too, but I think consumer is an interesting topic because, getting people to wrap their brains around this, and we're all kind of, I call it the Silicon Valley effect. We're all so excited about this stuff, but does it pass the grandmother test is what I like to call it. Will my grandmother care about this? And she's probably not the target market, but just, you get my point in terms of the litmus test. So I guess in terms of like market education, I'm probably most interested to answer your question. For Avegant in terms of like light fields, like the way you just described that to this kind of audience, you guys probably, some of you may already be adept at knowing what light fields is, that just like the art of like describing that, I'm sure you've honed that skill in your little kind of demo there. So just in terms of education.
Yeah, I agree. Steve, what's the biggest challenge?
Sure, Will. Testing. Okay, yes, we're here. So, actually, Mike, you kind of hit spot on the nail. So, really, it's as much as we can try to eloquently articulate what our display does, seeing is really believing. We have actually done demos for a lot of the press, and if you go online and do a search for Avegant, you'll see a lot of press articles, the most recent being a Verge video. I think the strongest validation of what we're trying to do in terms of making the display or the experience more immersive and real is how people act when they're doing our demo. And it's kind of embarrassing for them, and it makes us laugh when we watch them, is there's some of the demos have objects actually in your hand. I won't disclose all of the objects, but there are some objects that you wouldn't really want to have in your hand. And to see people go like this or really just jump out of their chair when they see something appearing on their hand, and they kind of flip it over so it's kind of a surprise. And then, of course, as I said before, everything's in focus and very vivid and very realistic. The other thing is we have a larger room demo where we have things that are moving around the room, and our founder's little girl, when she put on the headset, she was actually chasing these things around the room. And so, I mean, that's a perfect example of somebody who doesn't know the technology and is just really reacting to the technology. So that's a great example. And, you know, we see grown people do this as well, is really try to start chasing after things, virtual things in the room. But it's really just, my biggest job is really just getting the product fully integrated, get the builds out there and actually ship it to customers so that they can see it too.
The whole process of market education, of course, is part of marketing strategy, creating awareness so you could generate demand, so then you can figure out how the customer is going to pay for it. I wonder if, Taylor, could you address your high-level marketing strategy, the challenges involved in that, and what customers you're trying to reach?
Yeah, absolutely. So our approach is a little different because we're really a B2B format, but B2B4C. So our customers are these leading home furnishing retailers that you're going online. So those are our customers. And then in addition, on the real estate side, so we really have two verticals. We have the home furnishing retailers and we have the real estate market. What I mean by real estate market is we have brokers, platforms, which is internet listing sites, as well as multifamily partners. So the managers of these apartment complexes that are going up like wildfire. Well, that's bad. They're going up like crazy. Hopefully no fires. So those are our customers. And then what they're doing is, and the way we're marketing to them is right now it's largely by word of mouth. We have a rapidly scaling 3D content factory office in Chengdu, China. So we're able to create these 3D models fast and at scale. And we actually did that because we found ourselves, as we were trying to build these 3D models with third parties, that it was really hard to do. There was a big challenge in finding, of course, a standard method, turnaround times, and really having that consistent flow. And we've fixed that problem not only for ourselves, but of course for our customers. And some of those customers are creating 3D models themselves, and a lot of them are, and they also have applications that you guys know, and you know, Google Tango, since we're here, you know, they publicize very often Wayfair's application on the Google Tango. Well, you know, they create some of their own 3D models. We're creating a large number of them for them as well, and then they are putting them into that application, enabling people like us to be able to see those pieces of furniture in their home before they buy it, see if it fits, see how it looks, etc. So as far as marketing goes, it's kind of interesting for us because we are really, our customers are B2B, right? But then at the end of the day, we're licensing back those models in order for folks like us to purchase. So really, we're building the proof today that virtual stagings for real estate sell home furnishings. That's really what we're after right now, is being able to prove that, and we're doing that with a lot of help from our real estate partners by creating large volumes of virtual stagings to have out in the market in order to get those click-throughs to the retailer sites and eventual purchases, because try before you buy is really the way to go, to understand how something is going to look Not necessarily today how it's going to feel, although I do know that there are technologies that are out there trying to make those connections as well, which is intriguing. But being able to see something in your home, see if it fits, see the color and everything along those lines is definitely of interest to us, and to scale, right? With augmented reality, there's point clouds and there's measurements and all that kind of good stuff that we're actually understanding the space. But being able to see if something fits is, for the retail partners of ours, is helping them to increase their conversion rates and decrease the return rates on these products, because people are actually seeing that they fit and look good in the house before they buy. So really solving a huge problem for them and us as consumers as well.
Does that mean that you've stalked and captured the elusive ROI beast?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, don't you love the fact that we're talking about this visual medium, and we've got somebody here who's helping people who can't see to see with it? That amazes me. In the context of this marketing strategy, Suman, how do you reach your customers, and do you have competitors, and how do you let people know what you're doing? Is the product already being sold as a service? I saw you're hiring agents to talk to people.
Have hundreds of people using the service already, and we have hundreds of agents. It's very distributed model for our agents, so pretty much any agent can apply, very similar to Uber model, right? You have a computer, you have internet connection, and you go through a very rigorous training process. There is science on how you provide information using auditory perception to explain your visuals, right? We've been talking a lot about visuals, and for us it's exactly opposite. And it's not just for the blind and low vision people. Like, if you think about it, I was walking down the San Francisco roads, and I was having heck of a time, because you don't get to walk San Francisco every day in San Diego, right? So I was walking down, and I saw at least 4 or 5 people using their phones and walking down the street, right? So if I walk straight into them, they are literally not paying attention to me. So today, we talked about information. Human are information seekers, right? And that's through the historical times, human always wants more and more information. And today, most of the information is given or perceived, or we are seeking through the visual screens, right? Anywhere from looking at the slides to looking at the phone, to the point where now we are having amazing displays. So you will have even more things with augmented reality for your visual perception to process. So where I'm heading to with this one is, there will be a time in the humanity where your visual information will be overloaded, and we as a humans will start to look for what is our other sensory input that we can rely on for seeking that information. And that's where Aira comes into the picture, right? So we are literally creating technology using augmented reality. Now, whenever we speak about augmented reality, I confuse heck out of a lot of people, because you're not augmented reality. Augmented reality is about having a display and projected in front of your eyes. Not necessarily. If you look at the deeper definition of augmented reality, so it's anywhere like live, direct or indirect, physical, view of the computer mediated reality. So using video or audio or GPS or any other sensors. So in a way, for us, it is augmenting a blind person's world using the auditory perception. So going back to your question, Linda, for us it's not a rocket science, because we identified our target market, and our target market is blind and low vision people. And we were talking about the opportunity, right? It's around $161 billion for the VR and AR. Now, at least I will educate you guys with one thing. As of 2011, there is a total of $148 billion that is being spent for the wellness of just the blind and low vision people, just in the United States on a per year basis. Now, am I going after all 148 billion? Maybe not, because there is a lot associated with the cure. Even if you remove the $48 billion, which is the opportunity cost, because these people are not working, even if you put that aside, there is $22 billion that is being spent in the United States for having somebody next to a blind person and providing the care, right? So we are pretty much literally eliminating that sighted person next to a blind person and offloading it to somebody else using the augmented reality concepts. So for us, it will be focused on mostly healthcare markets, anywhere from right now it is blind and low vision, but we are also looking to deploy the similar AR technologies for autism, dementia, elderly care, and so forth. So
That's a giant market, and each one of them, of course, takes its own path toward raising awareness. So it'll be really great to see how Aira unfolds in addressing those. So thank you. But yeah, I agree. We are hungry. We crave information, right? Well, that's where you got the saying, sex, drugs, and pinch and scroll. I'm always curious about trends, and I think our whole panel, everyone on the panel can address the next question, and I'd love to hear if you agree with each other or debate this. But what are the top one or two trends that you see in augmented reality these days, and where you think it's heading, and especially with respect to your own company's focus?
Sure, I have a lot to say on trends, but I guess one of them kind of builds on what you were just saying around Audible is a form of AR. Right. I wrote an article about this yesterday. I wrote an article about this yesterday, and one of the angles was in kind of for assisting visually impaired people. Now, in addition to that, we see Apple just blitzing AR with ARKit and the upcoming iPhone. They also have the AirPods, which is another kind of arrow in their quiver in an AR strategy, I'm convinced. Because, if you kind of consider they're possibly small enough and sleek enough to engender a use case where they're just kind of there all day, that then opens the door for this kind of discrete, ambient audio channel. And what I love about that is one of the consumer, I guess, kind of holdups or drawbacks or points of resistance for AR-based glasses is style and cultural acceptance. We're just not there yet. I mean, there's all these kind of technology issues, but there are also cultural issues. So, AR, the kind of world's excitement over AR of the last 4 or 5 years has begun to be scaled back a little bit in terms of the just kind of expectations on timing to consumer ubiquity. And, a few things we're kind of refocusing on things like mobile AR instead, because that's more realistic. There are 2.6 billion smartphones on the planet, as opposed to this very small penetration of AR glasses that are mostly in the enterprise. So it's enterprise, it's mobile, and it's also these other modalities, one of them being sound, because it takes care of that kind of cultural barrier. So we all kind of become Secret Service agents, and it's use cases like, the person you're about to meet with for lunch, LinkedIn can send you information on the fly, or someone you're shaking hands with at a conference. It's, that's the Secret Service agent, like with Intel whispered into your ear. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, I'll wrap up that kind of thread with, there are a few things based on that, like we're all kind of scaling back our expectations, like maybe this is more of a 2022 thing than a 2018 thing, but that comment has an asterisk. It's definitely going to have all these great applications, but it's not going to be this mass market thing. And when I say mass market consumer ubiquity, I look as a precedent in terms of like historical technology revolutions. The magic number always seems to be 100 million units in terms of having a robust enough ecosystem and an installed base to then have supporting parts, to have content creators that are incentivized to build for those devices, and likewise for developers. So that's why I love things like ARKit, because out of the box they're compatible with hundreds of millions of existing iPhones, because they went with a software-based approach instead of a hardware-based approach to get to that AR that they're creating. And then I'll just unpack slightly a little more. I mentioned enterprise. I'm very bullish on AR, at least glasses-based AR, and that fully realized vision of glasses in the enterprise, because there it's that same thing with consumer resistance and cultural resistance, because it doesn't really matter what you're wearing at work. And there's also a very discernible ROI proposition for the buyer in that case, which is an enterprise. Maybe it's manufacturing, so things like assembly and maintenance, to be able to have an AR guided kind of process of, turn that screw, or, grab that lever, whether that be a human assisted kind of they're seeing what you're seeing, and it can kind of have a remote assistance, or if it's automated and it has machine learning and image recognition to say, okay, you're looking at this one part, here's what you do. I think that the barriers to adoption in the enterprise are so much lower for all those reasons. So I guess to sum up, mobile AR, enterprise AR, and other kind of funky modalities that might come along. And that's not even funky, it's one of our biggest senses in sound. So anyway, I'll shut up there, but that's my thoughts.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for those touch points. Given that we're talking about eyewear, Steve, what trends, especially, with the fact that you've come from a broad landscape of technology companies, so you have a unique perspective on that. What trends do you see in AR?
Sure. So going off of what Mike was saying, again, there's going to be a broad spectrum of devices, and what I think really the duty of people working in the AR space is to really, how do we help customers actually figure out what is the right device for them, right? Because for consumers, it's going to have to be like a pair of these before everybody's going to wear a hands-free display, right? People are not going to wear these real big, heavy, larger head-mounted displays. So, that's something that we're working towards. But in the meantime, some people will be happy enough just to get a little bits of information to maybe guide me down the street or to warn me of different things by just being able to project a tiny bit of information. That might be good enough for me. And then in other cases, like enterprise, what we're really looking at is where an engineer or designer no longer has to make 3D models to validate what an object looks like sitting on the table. I used to work for Motorola in the portfolio team doing the next years of products. And how many times I just spent, calling up the model shop, going back and forth between our office and the model shop, picking up models, and then looking at them and saying, no, this one's no good, this one's no good, this one's no good, and then having another set of models cut. So if we had mixed reality where we could actually put that in our hand and move it around and see the different angles, we would have been able to save so many 3D models. Or back then, basically we had to manufacture these with wood and plastics and different things. We couldn't just print them 3D. So that's an immediate ROI, is the cost of building models and figuring out some things even before we actually cut or print things. So I think it's really going to be up to us, and the trend is really going to be how to help people sort out what's the best solution for them. I think, mobile AR is really the path of least resistance because people already have the devices. But there's also things like projectors on buildings. There's also big screen TVs. If any of you have seen online, the Disney Labs Magic Bench. So there's anywhere there's a screen, you can create virtual reality. And a speaker. People, also a big trend is going to be how do you, what are the other sensory things that you bring to the experience? So there's also sound. There's also muscle stimulation or other stimulation of various systems on the body to be able to do things as well. So I think there's, gestures, gaze is just one part of it, but there's a lot of other systems in the body that we can start using as well.
Taylor, you have an audience that's not necessarily known for its high-tech vision.
Are you speaking about real estate? Yeah. I think the mobile and having AR in our pockets mainstream is definitely huge. We made the choice when we were developing our apps on iOS as well as on Google Tango to be handheld devices for a reason. Shopping for a home and shopping for home furnishings is oftentimes a shared event. So it's something that you normally don't do or typically someone wouldn't do by themselves, but they would do it with their cohabitant or their partner, or whomever they may be purchasing the home or purchasing a furniture piece with. So having that shared experience and really developing an emotional connection to either the home furnishing piece. We're in an episode of Dexter over here. Shrink. Thank you. So that's why we chose mobile first as our hardware in order to have our application on, is because it is a shared experience and people are able to develop that emotional connection together. So, I've personally stood over the shoulder of someone who's walking through a home using our augmented reality app on Google Tango and watching the husband and wife that are about to purchase this house start moving furniture around in augmented reality and starting to develop that, what I said, emotional connection to the property, and they're getting giddy. They're virtually, it's augmented reality, but they're virtually moving in. And so to us, that's fun to see, that level of excitement. But, the biggest trend for me right now is that everybody knows that they need to jump into AR and VR, but they don't know necessarily how. And who I'm talking about as far as they is our customers, the furniture retailers, the real estate professionals, be it in single family or multifamily. Everyone knows that there's a shift, right? It's shifting the way people are shopping. We've seen already Amazon, now they're already talking about doing augmented reality furniture stores. That's already been publicized. So to have just a blank storefront where you can come in and shop, but all through augmented reality. We all know what they're doing with Whole Foods already, and that's changing the way things are done. I mean, I don't use Amazon Fresh, but I do come home and I have my dinner sitting at my door ready to be prepared almost every day, right? So everything is changing the way it's being done by these guys. They're really changing. It's the shift. But still with augmented reality and virtual reality, as people are still struggling as to really how to adopt it and use it to the full benefit. And I think that once we get it in our pockets, with not only the AR kit, but also some things that Google, I know, is working on in order to make that more mainstream and not just in Google Tango, that we will see people walking in my view, and as far as our application goes, we'll be walking into a home without the real estate professional having used us to virtually stage, but they'll be walking in and walking around a house, changing the function or the style of a room right there as they're shopping the house.
That's great, Taylor. That's very insightful. Suman, hold a second. I know that we're running a little bit late, and did Dimitri already go with Crate Technologies? Because he was here with a quick demo, but I don't see him, and I wanted to call attention to him, but maybe he'll be back. But I also wanted to say that all of you, just by virtue of sitting here, are augmented reality pioneers. You are ahead of the game than most people are, and even embracing it and trying to figure out how it does fit into your business strategy. Dipti, do we have time for questions from the audience? Okay, I'm going to give you the mic. And you could be kind of Oprah or... He's good.
Okay. All right. So, are there questions in the audience? Okay, let me just go through.
Thank you. So, Steve, have you done clinical studies to see the impact of direct laser emission on the retina to see how it's...
Someone's got to invent really good adhesive, because these name tags never stay on. So actually when we worked on Glyph, we actually had a lab, and we looked at standards around blue LED emission on the retina, and we did some measurements, and we're extremely low, far below standards. Actually, there's nothing in the U.S., but there's some European standards around laser emission to the eye, and we're very, very small fraction of what's allowed. So, no, actually, in real use, we find that people are able to use the display much longer than staring at a screen that's in front. So when it comes to mixed reality, we also want to have that same quality where people are going to be able to comfortably use the display. And I think, I know solving the accommodation divergence problem will be one of them, but there's some other things that we'll need to solve too. Obviously, like they will need to get lighter over time and wider field of view and things like that. But I'm sorry?
Is it a class 1 or class 2 device?
Yeah, so where there's not, you mean in terms of emission? Oh, so we actually don't have to be FDA certified because we're not really using it as any kind of device like that. It's purely just, yeah. But there's, actually the question about FDA certification. So we are looking at other applications that would require FDA certification. Can't go into too much detail, but I mean, probably a lot of you have seen applications with a mixed reality around medical applications. So in that case, the partner that we would work with, that such a solution would have to definitely have that certified.
I'm Puneet from Medongo, and this is a question for Suman. So there's a local Silicon Valley company, Augmented, that uses Google Glass for providing scribing services for doctors. In fact, I think we hosted their CEO last year. I saw you using the Google Glass to provide information to the visually impaired about their surroundings. Is there anything else you are doing other than the agent behind, to enhance the experience? I was just kind of trying to wonder if it's a pure someone just telling the person what to do, or there's something else as well.
I just found how to shut up the audience. It's pretty close. So yes and yes, I think whatever we discussed in here is just scratching the surface in terms of what's going on behind the scenes. So I mean, there are lots of skill trading applications that Mike was talking about earlier, right? So the platform that we are building today just extends beyond blind and low vision people. Right now, the company was born because to provide that information for the blind and low vision. But as I was mentioning earlier, just immediately taking this technology and applying it to elderly care is a big market right there. There is lots of money being spent on just caregivers alone, not just in this country, in every other country. And speaking about other markets and the smart glasses, right? We actually take the glasses first approach. We do not take the mobile first approach. And the beauty about ARKit, if you think about it, is right now, it's genius and all the developers get to develop their applications on the phone. But when Apple comes out with their smart glasses, we can easily assume that it's going to be the same platform, right? So in a way, you already have applications built for the smart glasses for the future. Now, it is so true that the smart glasses are bulky, so please do something about it. But what exists today in the industry with the Google Glass, or we do have other manufacturers in the industry such as Vuzix and Pivothead, we are probably one and only one company that is doing augmented reality direct to consumers. Our customers are people who are out there in the consumer industry. And it may be surprising fact that for majority of the smart glass manufacturers today, the high demand is not the enterprise. We actually had more demand than the some of the enterprise companies out there in the industry, which is pretty cool because that's the beauty of the consumer, right? Once you have an application, once it is adapted, it can be adapted big. So I think long story short, yes, there are many applications beyond the scenes, and agents are also doing a lot of AI related work. if you think about it, we have a nice complete loop. We have the imaging data, we have the audio conversation data, we have sensor data, all coming into the platform. We hook into GCV, Google Cloud Vision, Microsoft Oxford for facial recognition, as well as Clarify system, right? So the way we are attacking the AI is context-based AI. Dan was talking about context-based AI. It's more about the context of what it is right now, and once we are comfortable on how our AI predicts of what needs to be done or what information needs to be conveyed, then we push out to the glasses. I mean, there are like multiple different concepts in here I'm talking about, but yeah.
Everybody, would you please join me in thanking Dipti and Mike and Steve and Taylor and Suman in coming to you today. So thanks for this opportunity.